Okay, let's take a look at this one here. We're going to take a look at the law of cosines today. You guys are familiar with the idea of the Pythagorean theorem of this leg squared plus this leg squared equaling your hypotenuse squared. Well, the law of cosines is really just a special case of the Pythagorean theorem. But the Pythagorean theorem only works with right triangles. Law of cosines, just like the law of sines, works with any triangle, right or not right. Now, you'll notice our Pythagorean theorem that we have up here shows up in our law of cosines down here. But we have this additional stuff. This additional stuff right here really takes the place of doing the correction for not having a right angle. So this whole thing is your law of cosines. Now, in general, you'll notice that we have angle C here, and then side C goes over here. So whatever your angle is, the opposite side goes on the other side of the equal sign. Then the A and B are the two sides. The A and the B are the two sides that are next to your angle. So those are your adjacent sides. And that's what we have here, here, and then in these two spots. So in general, this is your law of cosines. The law of cosines works when you are dealing with three sides in an angle. In other words, of those four things, the three sides in an angle, you would need to know three of them. Then you'd be able to find the missing one. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one here. Here you're given three sides. So first of all, draw yourself a triangle. So then you'd have a rough idea of how it's going to look. You know, this would be then A because it's opposite side A. This is B, and then this is C. Now, when you're not given any angles, the first thing you want to do is to go ahead and find your largest side. Your largest side is going to always be opposite your largest angle is what you want to find first. Will always be opposite your largest side. So in other words, in this case, since B is the largest side, we got to find angle B first. So, using the idea of law of cosines, we can go ahead and plug this in. We know we're going to put B after our cosine. So then what goes over here is our side of B. So we're going to go 8 squared equals, then it's going to be your adjacent side. Now whether you put the 5 here or the 7 there doesn't make a difference, because then you got to do the next one here, and notice they're added, and you can add in any order you want. Then you got to go minus 2, and then you got to put in your sides again. Whether you go 7 and 5 or 5 and 7 doesn't make a difference because they're multiplied together. And then you got to go cosine of B. Now we need to go ahead and solve this for B. So I'm going to go ahead and get the cosine of B by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 25 and the 49. Now, when I do that, that really leaves me with this still in front of my cosine that's multiplied. So to get rid of this part right here, I'd really have to divide both sides by that. So if I divide both sides by that, I would have this. So now, this over here does simplify down. I would get a negative 10 on top, a negative 70 on the bottom. Now I got to finish getting B by itself. To finish getting B by itself, I need to get rid of the cosine, so I'm going to do the cosine inverse. And negative 10 over negative 70 is 1/7. So now I have my calculator ready for them. I can type that into my calculator to get the decimal approximation of 81.8 degrees. Now, this is 81.8 degrees. I could go ahead and use law of cosines a second time to get my next largest angle. But you should realize we don't need to do that. We have now an opposite pair. And if we have an opposite pair, you should realize, oh, we just have to use law of sines. So I'm going to use law of sines to find angle C. If I'm trying to find angle C, I'm going to put that on top. So I'm going to put sine of C on top over the side opposite that, which is 7, equals, and now I'm going to put that opposite pair stuff that I know, the sine of the angle I just figured out, over sine of b. Now, to solve this, I need to go ahead and get rid of the 7 by multiplying by 7. Then I got to undo your sine by getting rid of the sine by doing the sine inverse. This is my calculator ready form. Now I just have to type that into my calculator and I get my answer of 60 degrees. Now that I know two answers, two angles, I can easily get the third one because remember all the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So go 180 minus your first angle minus your second angle, and then you get angle A to be 38.2. So let's go ahead and look at this one here. First thing I would do is draw myself a triangle. Drawing myself a triangle, I know it's an obtuse triangle. My A and my B are the two sides next to C. Now, at this point, I could try to find an angle B, angle A, or side C. I'm going to go ahead and find side C first because that's opposite my angle. And you'll notice I'm dealing now with these three sides and an angle. So when you're dealing with three sides and an angle, you can use law of cosines. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the opposite side of my angle equal to an adjacent side of my angle plus the other adjacent side of my angle minus 2 times my adjacent side times my other adjacent side times the cosine of my angle. Now I just have to get C by itself. Right now C is being squared, so I'm going to just take the square root of both sides. Now keep in mind your square root does not undo your squaring here when there's plus or minus signs in here. I would just say this is my calculator ready form. I'd type it in just like this, the square root, and then type all this here in. And then I end up getting 34 points, or 37.4 for C. So you'll realize at that point now we have our angle and a side opposite. It's an opposite pair. So then you can go ahead and use law of sine since you have an opposite pair. I'm going to go ahead and find angle A next. To find angle A, since it's an angle, I want that on top, so I'm going to have the sine of A on top. Then I'll put it over side A, which is 27. Then I need to go over here, put the sine of the angle I know over the side that's opposite that angle. Now to get A by itself, you got to undo dividing by 27, so multiply both sides by 27. Then you got to undo your sine, so then you'll want to go ahead and do the sine inverse of both sides. This is your calculator ready form, so now you can type it into your calculator, and then you will get this. Now it's easy to find your third angle because you know two of them, so just subtract them from 180 to get your last answer.